Welcome to another Stompy 51 miniature adventure where I still have the Blood Bowl bug, albeit I did get slightly distracted today with a bit of Warhammer fantasy in the old world. But anyway, this video is going to show you me taking a whole load of lead pile opportunity stuff and sort of showing you it all undercoated, assembled, and based, so at least I can get it onto the gaming board. But I'll start off, first of all, with some Painted Star players that I've also collated into a tray. So the first thing I thought I would do is just get out one tray, storage tray, and put all of the star players I have in it, painted or unpainted, because the approach seems to be a bit more all-encompassing to star players these days, whereas I recollect in the older versions I played that your star player was likely to only be usable for like one particular team or a couple. Now they can be used for a range of teams, and so I thought better to have them all in one place. I think that's a Raffaello Stumpo sculpted Chaos Dwarf, who I suppose you could use as Zharg Marai. That would be Borak the Despoiler. I painted him only the other day as part of my newfound excitement at re-embracing Blood Bowl, using, I think, mostly contrast Legion black contrast paint, whatever it's called, the Games Workshop one, with a bit of light highlighting. I don't know what it is about all the Games Workshop gold and bronze kind of colours I have. They've become very, very clumpy. I'll have to work out what to do about that. What else is in here? That's not Mumra, I can't remember. He's a star player, he's very old. I painted him in about 2008. I did a whole video about this fat rat the other day. I'm sorry, I can't remember the names of all these guys off the top of my head. Is that Hack Philem on the right there? And he's some kind of pogo stick jumping goblin. The guy on the left, I think, is a Grebo Games undead dwarf, but I saw in the list that there is a special undead dwarf star player who comically is quite fast, which this guy doesn't look like he would be, but I think it'll be fun to paint. And the guy on the right, I think I showed the other week, he's going to use his Griff. This guy is going to be Ripper Bolgrot. I think he actually is the original Ripper Bolgrot. And him I painted at least 10 years ago. Or I did sprinkle a little bit of blood for the blood god on him more recently. You see, I did take the time for two-tone camouflage, which I don't really bother anymore with. But I must say, it is always worth the time. I'm not sure there's a role for a chainsaw-wielding frog anymore, but we'll see. Is that Bomber Dribble Slot? Snot? What's in here? What's in here? I mean, I do have more star players, I just can't be... I'll have to slowly work through the rest of the boxes in the garage to find them, but that's what these spaces will be for. Is that Hathark the Unstoppable? So he actually painted reasonably recently, probably about 2021. Oh no, his nose already scratched. That's the thing about putting things in trays. They don't always survive. Albeit one could just say a little bit of a fleck of dirt has hit him. Anyway, I will update you on what's in this tray as time moves on. So that's step one of the rationalization. Step two was I had a look at the miniatures I had. And if they were just sort of sitting in a massive lead pile, I thought at the very least, let's just undercoat them, because let me try to get that in focus. You see, I'm always thrown when I see online people saying, oh, you know, it's causing me, you know, distress that I've got such a huge lead pile. I just think, you know, things don't need to be painted. You can just assemble them, undercoat them, and play with them. And, you know, that's giving you a bit of social interaction and letting you get to the purpose of the miniatures, which I would say is to play with them. And so what's wrong with that? I mean, I'll probably never paint all these things before I expire. So I think I've shown this before under other purposes. That's a beautiful sculpt by Arumor, a fantastic sculptor. She also did the Dracula's America artwork for those wargaming skirmish rules, Old West rules. And I suppose that would be Willow Rosebark. Right, so Warlord Games strangely released about half a dozen of these little garden fairies, whatever they're called, as part of a fantasy football range. I'm not sure who they were supposed to be at the time. And I picked up a few, and now Games Workshop has released some kind of garden fairy sprite who looks quite spooky. And I suppose they're charging a lot for her, so I thought, why don't I just crack out this one and paint her? I mean, she is tiny. If you imagine that that's quite a chunky halfling, it gives you a sense of her. So I don't think she'll take too long to paint. Although I say that, but I do find that these tiny miniatures take as long to paint as like a 35, 50mm miniature, because you only crack the paint out each time for the skin, the eyes, the hair, and how big the skin, the eyes, and the hair are doesn't really make much of a difference. Now, the thing I would say about halflings is that they used to all just be halflings, but now they've given them a few more positionals just to spruce them up, which is a fantastic idea. So you've got hefties with dodge, fend, and stunty. They all have dodge, don't they? So they've got fend and slightly better armor, and you need some catchers who have catch, dodge, right stuff, sprint, and stunty. So we need to keep an eye out for things that could be two hefties and two catchers. So hefties and catchers. So let's have a look. I mean, he looks like he's running, so not him. I mean, he looks like he's got, enhanced coordination skills. Or he's from some kind of like 1980s wax on, wax off Cobra Kai type environment. So I don't know, he could be a hefty maybe. That's Cindy Pie Whistle. These are all by Pedro Ramos, by the way. And I think he painted this quite recently. She'll be quite fun to paint. So he sculpted this one quite recently. He's got his own fan club on Facebook now. So a lot of these miniatures, I think these were sculpted for Willy Miniatures. But since then he's kind of got his own little range. But I think he sculpts for others as well. Now that guy looks perfectly normal. Again, these guys look like they're kind of running. He looks like he could be a bit of a hefty. So let's hold him back as, hefty potential. Now, why would this guy say be quiet? Maybe because they just can't stop chatting. You imagine, like in some kind of primary school teacher, all of his fellow little halflings are just running around and just headbutting the wall and doing whatever primary school children do. I'm so glad I'm not a teacher. This guy's having a bit of a chicken leg, and nothing wrong with that. But he looks like he's welling up to sock you one in the face, so he could be a bit of a hefty. I think they've gone a bit wild with the hairy feet. I mean, when they're called Harfoots in all the fantasy fiction and films, is it because they've got hairy feet or they're half feet? I don't really know. I mean, it is fantasy, so who knows? So we've got two. Oh, I mean, he's got obvious leadership potential. He looks like he's one of the Kennedys of the halfling world. A great hopeful Germanicus, beloved of the people and all that. So maybe he's a hefty. I think what I might have to do is just, paint their bases a certain colour. He just looks randomly ebullient, or he's just a dimwit. Ah, he's obviously a hefty, isn't he? He's a hefty. So maybe, he takes all the glory, and he takes all the knocks on the halfway line, with no glory, such is life. So that we've got, and he's obviously gearing up to be thrown. So there were no obvious catchers. Obvious catches. Maybe him and him. And I think there'll be no choice but to maybe write them on the base. I ordered a fine line white pen, a Sharpie with a very thin nib from Amazon, just to write on the bases any particular skills that they got as they leveled up. But it hasn't arrived, I may have to say so. Yeah, I don't know why I left him out. Do you guys ever find that whenever you're basing up or putting together something from your lead pile and you suddenly find that there's one element of it that's just sort of sitting somewhere that you'd forgotten about? Well, I'll have to do that. So let's put all these back. Oh yes, silly me, how could I forget? So you also get 2 treemen, as is always the way. This is a Pedrora Moss sculpt. These are all metal. I mean, I bought these about 10 years ago, maybe more. He weighs much more than him, but this is from the Pedrora Moss fan club page, and actually he made this one, this treeman and this treeman. They come with a body and 2 separable arms. I don't know if I've mixed up the arms, but they kind of work. But as you can see, he made them for gnomes. But presumably they all exist in the same happy little world of these kind of faux Germanic fantasy forests. Frankly, Celtic forests. Very characterful. And look, this little fellow popping up, saying hello. So somehow this guy is full of living magic, but seems to have huge hollowed out spaces, which for a mammal is quite hard to understand because we don't have hollowed out spaces. There we go. There's another little fellow. So I suppose I just paint this dryad bark, and then I suppose different colours, shades of kind of green and reddish brown for all these leaves. I always like autumn looks, not least because it's a bit more exciting than a summer look. And I think the armour for these guys will be orange. Orange here, orange there. And I think I'll just paint everything orange except for the... I'm trying to think. So the armour will be orange. And probably also the trousers. And maybe the shirts would be white with a stripe of black or something. And orange will be their colour because I'm thinking they'll be called the orange peelers. Also because I don't really have much use for orange as a paint. And so my pot of orange is just sitting there, mostly unused. And I'll add a little bit of one of the Games Workshop kind of base colours, the old ones, a little bit of red into the orange to give it a bit of body, because the orange seems to be a bit liquidy. And when I last used it, I thought, what's the point of this? It's got about the same coverage as orange squash for kids. So I'll have to work that one out, but that will be the task. And this I will use as a hero, what they call it, a star player. I think it's called Maple High Grove. The idea being it's supposed to be a young tree, so instead of being like strength 7, it's only strength 5. But entirely plausible because, you know, you don't want to kick a tree because it's just like kicking a block of wood. Now, it's not that big compared to a human. I suppose it's slightly bigger than a human. But then again, it is plausible that this is strength 5 because, as I said, it is just a reanimated, inanimate hunk of wood. So that's the orange peelers and the kind of woodland lot. I can't remember the name of this star player. It's basically a rat ogre with strength 7 and a wrecking ball. And this is another Pedrora Moss miniature. Not as big as you might think it is, but equally it looks pretty vicious. And I'll paint it very simply, I think. I'm a bit worried about the tail. The tail I had to glue on separately. It's resin and beautifully sculpted and beautifully cast, actually. Oh, I never noticed that. That's quite cool. So it's got a normal eye on that side. and all of the weird futuristic modifications on the other. Maybe not so much futuristic, maybe more steampunk. Nothing wrong with a bit of steampunk in your Blood Bowl. That's just for a bit of scale comparison. So let's have a look at the Imperial Nobility that I pulled together the other day. That they've been sitting on a sprue since 2020, presumably. I think, did the game come out just before lockdown in 2020? So I don't know what I was thinking. I thought, in terms of undercoating, that I'd undercoat them black and then spray paint a bit of white so that a lot of the work would be done. But there's something wrong with my white spray paint. It doesn't seem to have great coverage. And also it occurred to me that if my idea had been to just use contrast paints, for white feathers, that there's too much black on the background here. But then again, that could be an opportunity. Maybe I'll just use colours I don't normally use. So I'm thinking maybe yellow for most of the clothing, with black stripes into the folds, into the Renaissance folds where I can. And then maybe something bonkers, just like pink. I never really use pink for the feathers, and just leave them wholly pink. And then gold for the armour, bronze type colours. And silver trimming. Oh, I can't even tell what figures are which looking at these. You've got linemen. I don't think we've found any linemen. No, he looks like a lineman. And they seem to come with fend as a bit of a skill. Throwers, so he's obviously a thrower, and there's another thrower in here somewhere. I mean, would it have been too hard for Games Workshop to have given you different heads? I mean, this is a head from Anvil Industries. I mean, hopefully when I paint it, it won't look like he's just been garroted, which you can see over there, the line between his neck and his body. I think it's perfectly plausible. But there's so little variety in these. They've gone back to what they were in the 90s, except I think even in the 90s, there were more different positionals. So that's linemen. Then you've got throws I showed you, the blitzers. Is he a blitzer? I think he is a blitzer. And then you've got bodyguards. Maybe he's a blitzer. He looks kind of regal. And he's maybe a bodyguard or a blitzer, I don't know. He's clearly a bodyguard. But the bodyguards look pretty generic. Again, would it have been hard to at least have just had different heads? And the bodyguards have stand firm and wrestle, and the blitzers have block and catch. Right, so we'll leave those actually at the back. This is just a Skaven priest of some kind, which I got in the last Warhammer edition, and which I was using as a star player, but I don't think that they have him anymore. I think he's been removed. Possibly replaced with that giant rat ogre. These are 6 Franarchia ogres. I've got some small goblins, which are in a different box that I can't be able to pull out, which I did paint in about 10 years ago, which I'm going to use for Noblars. But I assembled these and Zenithal highlighted them, Zenithal sprayed them, just to get them moving towards actual tabletop use. I mean, they're gorgeous. They're great fun. And they look reasonably simple to paint. And my idea there, I think, is going to be silver armor, white, no, maybe, hang on, pink armor, just for a bit of fun, brown padding, white shorts and tops where they've got them, and then maybe white stripes, sorry, yellow stripes to kind of go with the pink. they do all look slightly boneheaded, but at least they don't have loner. But I've got a whole load of the various transfers from some of the more recent plastic kits, which hopefully will make them look a bit more professional in terms of their numbering. They are pretty big and very heavy because they're metal. You can still get them from Comics y Niños. He's my favourite because he looks like he's showing actual dynamic interest in pushing the game forward. Now, was there any point in me zenithal spraying this? Because to do that, you've got to be quite disciplined about watering your paints down. And I don't really like that kind of watercolour look. I like more a kind of gap-filled 1990s, 1980s comic look in terms of coloration, rather than the kind of golden demon looking. We've used 70 layers of thinned down paint to get to where we've got to. He's a Pedro Ramos goblin, clearly usable as the black goblin. Sorry, I'll get into focus there, young goblin. So he's got loads of sticks of dynamite and presumably a knife held on his person somewhere. He was created as, I think, a fan by Pedro Ramos before the new edition came out. So he's perfectly usable as the horrible, smelly fan positional. I've got the old Norse team, GW 1990s. And amazingly, I found this Grebo pig, which I think came as some kind of accoutrement during one of the Kickstarters. So that's great. So once I've got him, it looks like he's about to take a dump. Oops. Ah! Pig down, pig down. So I can use him to kind of bring that Norse team up to date. Equally, Pedro Ramos was selling these to help you bring your necromantic teams back from the dead to the new edition. But my necromantic stuff is in another box, which I can't be able to crack out today. He's some kind of suicidal goblin with some bombs, and I've got a base with one of those kind of like one of those transparent plastic stands that you put aeroplanes on. So not too high, of course. You know, this is not some kind of movie, you know, where he kind of goes up 15 feet in the air and then comes down with his bomb. It's just a couple of feet in the air. So I'll paint him eventually, along with him. He's a dive bomber, which I think is one of the positionals. Also Pedro Ramos, just like him, both metal. This is Pedro Ramos from, I think, I don't even know if you can guess it anymore. Comics y Niños might have it. It was made to match one of the NAF commissioners, I think. Was his name Gegster? Lovely fellow. I played a couple of games with him in a central London club. Also Pedro Ramos, I think usable now for one of Dribble and Droll. A frogman with stab. A Pedro Ramos miniature usable as the White Dwarf. This guy is a large Black Orc by Franarchia. I don't know if it was intended to be a star player, but he's a great candidate for Vara Gulchur. I mean, he's absolutely massive. I forgot to show you this ogre. You know, he's basically totally capable of going one-to-one with an ogre. He's got a lot more upper body muscle. I always found this with Franarchia. He kept things very simple, but he had a great sense of basically human anatomy and musculature. I don't know if he still sculpts stuff, but this looks like it'll be really fun to paint. And because he's a star player, I might choose weird colorings for his teethy, emblazoned shoulder pads. He'll end up looking like United Colors of Benetton on a killing spree. There's the white dwarf. What have we got here? Someone you can use as Guffle plus more. He's resin. And also Pedro Ramos. And this guy, I think, is a Rafael Stumpo miniature. And I never thought there was a purpose to him until the Chaos Dwarves mixed up their positionals to have these kind of fire-blowing dudes. And he will make a fantastic fire-blowing dude. And then I think we'll end today with a few things that I don't want anymore. So I painted these halflings a very, very long time ago. And I've lost interest in them. They're all pretty samey. I don't feel I painted them that well. Someone will appreciate them and hopefully will buy them. I painted them in 2008. And there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that I like the bigger, chunkier Pedro Ramos ones. Because they are quite different in levels of character, I would say. And this fella, I don't think I really want anymore because there's no purpose to him. I've got two Yetis, one as a star player, one as the Yeti that I need. And he's quite chunky and metal, and I got him in some Kickstarter. I can't even remember which one. And we'll see if I can swap him for anything else. Well, as they say, that's all, folks. So hope to share something again with you very soon. Until then, please like, comment, and subscribe so I can try and get this out to more people. Cheers.